published last year, Live with a Coaching Mindset. And the goal that we have here as a cafe for ICFLA chapter is to have a conversation. So this is not a lecture, it's an opportunity to meet and share our experiences and learn from each other. So this is a very collaborative space and an opportunity to build a community too. Our goal is to meet every month. We meet consistently. It's always the third Wednesday of the month at the same time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That for the local people is our lunch time. So it's completely okay for you at some point to turn off your cameras and eat your lunch or eat your lunch without turning off your camera. It's okay too. So Sarah, welcome. Welcome some people who are joining. We may have more people joining today. And today we're going to be discussing the chapter number 4 of the book. Like every month is according to the month is the number of the chapter. So today now chapter 4 for April is about contracting. So basically in the book we use the ICF competency framework to see how competencies that professional coaches demonstrate in their practice apply to leaders. How leaders can be more coach-like by practicing the different competencies. So today, the idea is to have a conversation around the contracting and agreements and how we set up relationship for success. Now,
Can you show the book so we know which book you're referring to?
I am talking about the book is called Live with a Coaching Mindset,
Written by anybody you know?
written by somebody that I know well, kind of.
Little plug for you.
And you don't need to read the book to participate, but if you want to get it, you can bring questions or comments. And I do believe this is a great resource to work with leaders. It's a great resource for leaders who are interested in being more coach-like or they want to develop coaching skills. You can recommend the book and you can discuss the book with them as part of the process. So when I wrote the book, it was more like a manual to train leaders on coaching skills. So I have been coaching leaders for 30 years and I have been training leaders on coaching skills almost for the same time. So the idea is that I wanted to share with my colleagues ideas, suggestions, how to train leaders on coaching skills. So originally the book was a manual for trainers on leadership skills. And I did that in Spanish. But when it was translated to English, the publishers didn't want that. They wanted the text. So they took all of the exercises. But what I am thinking, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to get all of the exercises and I'm going to put a workbook and I will give it to people for free in my website. And I will use that as what I call a magnet to attract people. So you exchange people, you give them your whatever, can be a free coaching session, can be something you wrote. It's called a lead magnet, and the goal is to exchange something of value in exchange of their emails so they can receive your newsletter or can be in your database so you can invite them to your activities. Now, I have a
Very,
question from the
I
people
just
who
want
are
to say it's
here.
very,
Mhm.
besides being a lead magnet, it's very generous of you.
Yeah, I think that can be helpful for people, and I think that I have that already. I just need to translate it. And AI today is really helpful about translating. Like all of the translators don't have work, don't have more work because AI can do such a great work in translating that. So I will work on that. So I want to know if everybody here, like this is open to anybody who wants to participate and it's free. Sometimes we have only coaches, sometimes we have leaders also who are interested in the topic, and that's the reason why they're joining. So to get a sense here, is everybody a coach here? Are everybody, or sometimes HR partners or people working in HR? But who is a coach here? Raise your hand if you're a coach. So I think Amber, do you want to share? Are you a coach too? Or you're not a coach. Tell us a little bit about you so we get to know you.
I'm sorry, my audio keeps going in and out. I just caught the last of, am I a coach? I'm not a coach.
Great.
But I did take your coaching training maybe last year.
Yes. So some people because it's open to anybody who wants to come. So HR leaders, anybody who is interested in learning more about how to use these coaching skills in leadership developments for ourselves or for our clients. So welcome back, Amber. Great seeing you here. And you, Fatma, would you raise your hand? You wanna say you're a coach too, or you wanna add something else?
Yes, I'm working on the certification from ICF, but I did my hours. So I'm not like a certified by ICF, but I know the coaching, like I'm in the process. So I do now like some mutual, these 500 hours coaching sessions, and I'm working on it. So
Great, great. Well, welcome. Here, this is a space for anybody who wants to join and have a conversation. So I am going to talk for a few minutes about some ideas about contracting applied to leadership, and then we will go to 2 or 3 groups to have a conversation with the participants. Yeah, because what the most important part here is the dialogue and the conversation. So a couple of things about contracting. When we apply the idea of contracting and coaching at work for leaders, what I focus on is on building effective relationships. How leaders contract with their direct reports and with their colleagues to have effective relationship, effective work environment, effective teamwork. And many times leaders don't spend enough time setting relationship for success. So the idea is how we can be intentional in and doing some planning in being sure that the onboarding process in organization is effective. So onboarding is every time that we have new people coming to an organization or to a new team, or maybe it's not that you have to onboard new people, but suddenly you are the leader is the one who has a new job. So the leader is the one that needs the onboarding and is going to be building the relationship with the team, with people who are already working together. So what are the key elements of success? So the first one that I like to say, and you people who know me have heard me saying that people don't have a crystal ball. They cannot read your mind. So you need to clarify, you need to articulate what is in your mind. You need to let people know what do you need, what do you want, what is your vision, where you are going. People cannot guess that. So you need to tell people what are your intentions. And you also need to be curious and find out theirs. Like when you start in a relationship, it's not only what I need from you to work together and for you to be successful in this organization and in this team, but what do you need from me as your leader? That is a really great question that most leaders ask, but not all of them. So if you are one, you may consider, okay, am I asking people working what do they need from me? And leadership is not only being a manager. When I was the global president of the International Coaching Federation, I have a very challenging leadership role because I was not the boss, or I didn't have a lot of authority, but I have to influence people who were part of the team. I'm talking about the board of directors. So I spent a lot of time in building relationships. So I learned from past presidents because that's important. We learn from other people doing the job before, or from our teachers, or from our own leaders in our life. So I started by interviewing and building a relationship with every board member, where I was telling them what was my vision, what I wanted to accomplish, what I needed from them, but I was asking them, what do you need from me so we can have a great team? Barry.
I just want to add to that a number of my executive coaching clients they don't know this concept of onboarding or designed alliance, and they do with me, but they don't out there. And often when we get into, well, how do they work with this person, that person, and trust and all the conflict, we talk about this because it's like it's a life tool. And
Mhm.
I just notice it's great all the time, but I notice in business, people don't have this terminology and it's like foreign, and yet it works so well. So I just wanted to presence that. Thanks.
That's a great point. And do you know what? Many people who go through coaching training, and I had that experience when I train coaches, they may have some experience coaching, but they may not be familiar with the coaching agreement. And they don't spend time at the beginning of the session clarifying expectations and needs at the goal for the conversation. And when I train coaches, and I have been doing that for a while, when they had to work with a mentor coach, when they practice coaching and they receive feedback, sometimes they forget to do the contracting. They just jump into the issue without spending enough time clarifying what is the goal, what needs to be accomplished in the session, why it's important to explore whatever is going to be explored, and understanding what is the underlying issue before we jump into the topic, before we jump into problem solving or understanding whatever needs to be explored in the session. So contracting here is being intentional, is knowing that in each conversation, like in each relationship, the foundation is how you clarify what is going to be accomplished, what is going to be done, and how it's going to be done. So spending time in clarifying expectations is a key element in onboarding processes, in effective relationships, and then also being clear about ground rules or norms. One that the expectations are clear, the second piece is being sure that there are norms or agreements or however you want to call it. People call that differently, but okay, let's agree how we're going to be working together. What are the standards? What are the expectations of the relationship? What is appropriate? What is not appropriate? Boundaries. What mean boundaries? Okay, till what time are you going to be working? Till what time we can talk to each other at night? That boundaries really help. And many times issues at work are related to boundaries. It's about not spending time at the beginning of the relationship in clarifying boundaries. So in my book, when I talk about some strategies about effective onboarding, I include clear communication, clear goals, foster continuous learning, how we set up for success in terms of okay, how we are going to be learning what you need to learn. And I have some questions in the book that I want to ask you for you to start thinking, and we will go to breakouts in a minute. Is that as a leader, and this is a question for the leaders, how I clearly identify and explain regulations, policies, procedures to my employees? Have I clearly set employee job expectations and link them to concrete time-bound measures? Because it's not fair at the performance management time when people are evaluating 1 year later to find out that they were evaluated on things that they never knew. So people need to know at the beginning how they are going to be measured and evaluated. Am I supporting my new hires so they will have a full understanding of the company culture? That's another element, is being sure that the leader in the onboarding process explain how things are done in the organization. And we call that organizational culture. Organizational culture is how we work in this organization. And finally, am I connecting with my new employees to establish all the relationships vital to their success? And I have a good story about that. That is not in the book. I'm sorry I missed it. But I had an important job working for Personnel Decisions International, and I shared a couple of stories about my experience working at that company. I was hired to be an international management consultant, and then I became an executive coach from that. And doing this leadership training all over the world, they sent me to more than 50 countries over the years. The first thing that my leader did for me, who was a very effective coach, she said, Damian, I am going to introduce you to the colleagues in the company so they get to know you. So she wrote a very nice paragraph saying, let's welcome Damian. And then she described my background and my experience, a little bit about me, that I was from Argentina, that I was a psychologist, a couple of things. And then she said, we're very lucky to have Damien in our team. Please join me to welcome him. And then I got a lot of emails from all of these people, and I get to build a relationship with them. So my boss set me up for success by the small thing of introducing myself to my colleagues and asking them to welcome me to the organization. Can you see how this small thing, it took her 5 minutes, it made such an impact for me starting to work in the organization. So these are the small things that make a big difference when we are setting up relationships for success. So I want you to think in your work as in HR, in leadership, as coaches, what are some of the key elements in your experience when you need to start relationships? So we're going to discuss about contracting and agreeing when you start your relationship. How do you do that? What best practices do you know? What do you know that is effective? And the other ingredient that I want to bring here is working in a hybrid world. Because also when you're working with a virtual team and people are all over the world, the way that you set up the team and the way that you set up people makes a big difference. There is a whole trend now of isolation at work where people feel very lonely. And that experience of being lonely is not only for working virtually. Sometimes people being even in person, people still are feeling lonely at work. There is a very interesting article about that from the Wall Street Journal that there is some research on that. And what they explain is that for different reasons, starting by working virtually, but then people not connecting, people not relating, like everybody doing their own thing, being too stressed out with so much to do and everything happening around them and in the world, they are not connecting. And I do believe that part of the job of the leader is to support the team members to connect with each other, particularly when you're working virtually. How do you reproduce some of the things that you cannot do in general when you're doing virtually? Because you do in person, this chit chat that happen in the halls before the meetings, how you create and reproduce some of that virtually. Okay, let's go to small groups and let's have a conversation for 15 minutes. What came up for you about these issues based on your experience, other people's experiences? And then we are going to debrief all together. So maybe one of the three people can take some notes. So we have triads or a couple of people. So we can somebody can report when we come back. Okay. Okay. So let's be back in 15 minutes. So welcome back.
We're back. I love the group. I love the discussion. Was amazing. I'm so happy we did it. Thank you so much.
Good to hear. Yeah, sometimes the advantage of being in small groups is that you can have more an intimate conversation than when it's a bigger group. So then you can bring here some of the key learnings from that conversation. So would you like to start sharing what happened in your, I'm going to give you this opportunity to share a little bit, Fatma, what happened in your session, in your group?
So actually, Gigi is the one who took notes. So if she wrote everything, I'll let her share. But I have learned so much, and I feel like so it's great value. So I'll let Gigi share the thoughts in the
Great.
okay.
Okay.
Great.
So it was Fatma, Erica, and myself. And Erica and Fatma, you can definitely add to our what I'm gonna share. So we came up with almost like two categories, I would say. First of all is a mindset. What sort of mindset are we having? So the issue, maybe I should back off. The issue what we were talking about is how to create connection, whether it's new teammates, new staff member, or existing relationship in a hybrid environment. So we came up with more of a mindset, starting with with having respect for the other person, being in being curious about who that person is, meeting them where they are, and being intentional in how we want to connect as well. And also allowing them space to say something, not just say, "Hey, how are you? I'm Gigi," blah blah blah, and but stop and listen to the other person so that you create that connection. Allow them space to fill it so that we can get to know the other person. And then the other category is more about the physical or creating common projects, whether it's putting a puzzle together, going for a walk, creating an affirmation tree, creating something universal that's inclusive, that allows people to connect without figuring out who's experienced, who's more senior, and all that, but creating that universal ground where people can come up with their own, can connect and provide their thoughts, and that's how they create those connections.
That sounds great. And what you use the word intentional, that is very important, is that it's not going to happen by itself. We need to create opportunity for things to happen and for the relationships to grow. I like to use the metaphor of a plant. The relationships are like plants, like they need water and they need sun and fertilizer, and relationships are the same. They need to be nurtured. So if you don't spend time in getting to know the other person and being curious, but that curiosity has to be genuine, cannot be faked. You really need to care about understanding and knowing the person. That makes a difference because by doing that, you get to know the other person. And by getting to know each other, not only as workers, but even as human beings, about what is important to me, what are your values, what you care about. When we're working together, if I am leading the person, I can look for opportunities where they can apply what they want to do or are their professional goals or where there are opportunity for them to learn and grow based on what is important to them. Sometimes it's not possible, but if you do not know what is important to others, it will to be much more difficult to assign tasks and activities that are aligned to their dreams. So spending this time makes a big difference. Thank you very much, Gigi. Who else would like to, in the other group, who would like to share the other conversations?
Are you so in our group is
Mhm.
share? I just I also want to add that to what we have discussed through what I've learned from the discussion also is um, coming up with non-traditional ways, like what also Gigi, like coming up with new ways of the relationship. And sometimes maybe if it's a topic, you don't have to start with focusing on this topic. We can just talk about something that we have in common and then give like ourselves some kind of relaxing time or something. So we can, it's not like we have something that we need to talk about, but we still need to have a structure, even simple, gentle, to guide us back to the relationship or to the topic in hand. That's all.
Okay, so the idea that you do want to have some kind of a structure. So there is some planning ahead, maybe what you want to keep in mind when you're going to be meeting. So that agenda can make a difference. Yeah, that's great. What else? Who else would like to share? We have other. Let me see. Amber and Jenny, anything that you want to share about your conversation?
Yanni and I talked about a lot of things, but related to coaching, we talked about creating and being intentional about creating goals and setting goals and um, coming back to building the team, I guess, morale or expectations when we've noticed a big hiccup. Oh, I thought we set the goal, something has happened now, let's come back and regroup and being intentional about that.
Great. So it's about acknowledging whatever is going on. And also, there is a big relationship between clarifying expectations and listening, because we need to listen when we're doing that, but also we create trust as a result of that. Because when we're listening and when we're bringing this to people's awareness and we validate or normalize, we also create trust. People may feel, okay, so there is somebody who's going to be able to name what's going on. And particularly now with a topic like the war, the economy, politics, sociological, economical challenges we're dealing these days, I do believe that we need to talk about that, how the system is affecting us and impacting us. Leaders need to spend time with their collaborators in discussing that. As coaches, we need to do that with leaders. It's like bringing to people's awareness how the context is impacting our everyday work. So thank you, Amber, for sharing that. And the last group, I don't think we heard from Yesenia, Vanessa, and Barry. Who would like to share?
I think we kind of what we talked about was the like when you should have a conversation about expectations when your team has kind of been intact, right? And how
Mhm.
it feels, how it could feel awkward in the middle of something. You've been working with these people, you're not onboarding, right? Because it's been so it feels awkward. But Barry had mentioned the notion of resetting. All right, this let's reset and use some sort of analogy like we reset our televisions every night or our lights or our laptops right now. Let's just reset this whole situation and start from scratch. I kind of talked about bringing in when you learn something, like for instance, today I'm at this training, right? I'm learning about this and I can bring it back to my team and say, you know what, I attended this thing today and I feel like let's just start from scratch. Let's start all over again. Let's have this conversation. Let's set the expectations. And Barry talked about how it really needed to be very collaborative, right? Like we're needing to work together because when Vanessa and I both work at the county, we have duty statements that list our job expectations, but it's not related, usually not related to any of the work that we're going to do because it's so broad and so generic for different people of the county, right? And so I think we need to take time to be very specific and mindful about what are the tasks that you're going to be expected to complete and for your performance evaluation, right? Like it wouldn't be fair to evaluate someone off of this generic thing, right? I think that's where issues come about, right? Because it's so generic and you say, staff person can say, I'm not doing that because it's not on my duty statement, right? And that's where some things can happen. So I think a reset was really at any point was what we talked about.
Yeah, that's great. That can be one technique. Another technique is just to doing check-ins where people share where they're at present, and that bring what are the issues that may be in people's awareness that people may not be talking if we don't open the door for that. So it's other techniques. So thank you, Jasenia, for sharing that. Bear, do you want to add
I
something to
just want to
this?
add one thing in this great triad we had. What came up was to possibly use a metaphor to explain it. We didn't talk about specific metaphors, but metaphor. Oh yeah, I did. I said, so often as humans, we don't like in companies, we don't look at like what is a reset. Yet we reset our computers, right? We
Mhm.
reset, turn the lights out at the end of the day. We reset our bodies. So maybe sometimes they brought up this idea of metaphors to help people have the conversation, and then
Mhm.
maybe a conversation is what does reset mean and how does it work? So it's not just top down. I thought that was a great conversation we
Yeah.
had. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds a good point. And also, before we finish, because we have only a few minutes, and I want to make a couple of announcements from the ICFLA chapter. I think it's important to recognize that in the hybrid world that we live today, many people are still struggling to support colleagues to be effective at working collaboratively in a hybrid world. So what is interesting is that there is not one better way than other. Like some people think they prefer to work virtually, some people prefer to work in person. Sometimes people have a lot of noise and things going on at home. So working at home is not really a good idea. And some people may prevent them from getting jobs. If they had to drive for 2 hours, they may not get the job. And if they can work from home, they may be able to get jobs that they would not do it otherwise. So there are different pros and cons of any situation. But what research is showing is that what is important to the extent that is possible is that people choose what they want, because what works for the leader may not work for each of the participants of the team. So the idea is that to the extent that it's possible to adapt the individual needs to the team and organizational needs, you can be more effective in getting people's engagement, commitment. Easy to say, not so easy to do, but that is part of the onboarding process, or maybe even the contracting, even before the onboarding, before the hiring process, is clarifying, okay, what are the expectations from the organization and the team, and what are the needs of the person. And if there is a mismatch, it's a good thing to explore that before they get a new job. Now, in situations where things have changed over time, so I know companies that are calling everybody back to work. No matter what, you need to come back to work, and as a result of that, many people are quitting. Or other companies the other way around, no more offices. Everything is virtual. Some people may be also quitting because of that. But how can be sure that we create work environments where one way or another people are successful? Any reactions towards this? Any comments or reactions?
I think it's important to always remind people of the things they have in common. Like, we are here together, we are all working towards one thing. And then, like, when they start to everybody drift away, they come back to this shared thing. Like, oh, we're here because we want to succeed. We want the company to succeed. So you do your part, I do my part. It's not like, oh, this is when there's a conflict between me and the group or the work. So we always find the way that there is a common thing between me and the group and the company, so that when there is a conflict, I go back to this space, and then again I can accept. I come to a compromise. So giving people this reminder, always reminding them, and also being flexible, give them option that as long as you're doing this objective, you can have some space, you can have some authority or autonomy, let's say.
I think that's a great point. Reminding the team why are they there? What do they have in common? What is their goal? Sometimes it's a really good way to align people. And this issue of alignment is a challenge. Many times alignment is not there. There is not alignment between individuals and the needs of the team, or the team and the needs of the organization. So leaders have a big role in creating that alignment by clarifying expectations, by clarifying the vision, by when they realize that there are things that are not aligned, bringing that to conversation, versus just waiting that things will be different. Most of the time, they don't change if the leader and the participants don't take action. So it's time to wrap up. As I said, this goes really fast. Next month is our session number 5, and it's chapter number 5, and we're going to be working on trust. Trust issues is our focus on the next session. I also have a podcast, so if anyone is interested, if in YouTube, you can see interviews on the different topics. So that's a follow-up. If you're interested, you can just find it in YouTube or in all of the podcast sites. And before we go, briefly, I want to share a couple of announcements from the chapter. So our sponsors first, I cannot forget to mention them: Evolve Well, Simply Get Clients, and if you're interested, you can get their bars. They help coaches with marketing. Cohere is a platform to support coaches in their work. We help you with building landing pages, scheduling, communicating with clients, and a lot of resources. NSA Southern California is an association of speakers, like we have an association for coaches. And I am a member of National Speaker Association because I am also a speaker. And they are a great resource. They provide a lot of value to their members. And some of the upcoming events virtually, we have the Credential Special Interest Group starting on April 16th. We have the San Fernando Valley in-person coaching cafe on April 17th, the Pasadena coaching cafe on April 3rd. And if you want to be part of the team, contact us. We're looking forward for volunteers to support the mission. Here is the code. It's a really good way to get to meet other colleagues. When I joined ICF LA, I asked, how can I help? And they say, okay, you're going to be a greeter. Go to the door and say hi to everybody coming in. So that was my first job as a volunteer for ICF LA. And from there to becoming ICF Global President, it was a journey. And it's great being back here to support colleagues and leaders on being more coach-like. So thank you for coming here today, for being part of this coaching virtual cafe, and we will see you next month. Okay, remember it's always the third Wednesday of the month at the same time, but require registration. So you just need to remember to register. Okay, thanks everybody, good seeing you, and thank you Gigi for helping me